Shalom Kulam, welcome everyone. We're starting a new book called Hilchot Deot, the Laws of Personality Development. And it starts off with an introduction. Yesh bichlelan achat esrei mitzvot. It contains 11 commandments. Hamesh mitzvot aseh, v'shesh mitzvot lo ta'aseh. 5 of them are positive, 6 of them are negative. V'zeu pratan, these are the details. Aleph, the first one, lihidamot bidrachav, to resemble, to be like God in his ways. Lihidabek biyoda'av, to adhere to those who know him, in other words, to attach oneself to them. Lehov et ra'im, to love one's fellow Jew. Lehov et agirim, to love converts. Shelo lisnu achim, not to hate our brothers, our brethren. Lochiach, to admonish. Shelo lehalbin panim, not to cause someone shame. Shelo la'anot amelelim, not to distress the downtrodden. Shelo la'aloch rachil, not to go as a teller of tales. Shelo linkom, not to be vengeful. Shelo lintol, not to bear a grudge. Ube'ur kol hamitzvot ha'elu b'prakim elu. And the explanation of all these is in the following chapters, in which we start right now, chapter 1. Hilchot Deot Perek Aleph. This is a very important chapter, by the way. There's a lot of interesting things in it. Deot harbe yesh lekol ehad ve'ehad mibnei adam. Every person has many different personality traits. V'zo mishuna mizo v'rechoka mimena biyoter. And they're all very different from each other. Yesh adam shu bal hema. Some people are very angry. Bal hema means a master of anger, literally. But someone who's always angry. Ko'es tamid, he's always angry. V'yesh adam sheda'ato miyushevet alav. And on the opposite side, there's people who are very calm. Ve'eno ko'es klal, and doesn't get angry at all. V'im ka'as, yichos ka'as me'at bekama shanim. And if he does get angry, he only gets angry once every few years. V'yesh adam shu gvahlev bioter, and there's some people who are very proud, very haughty. V'yesh shu shval ruach ad meod, and others are extremely humble. V'yesh shu ba'al ta'ava. There's some people who have great appetites, so to speak. Lo tisba' nafsho me'aloch b'te'avotav. His soul is never satisfied by fulfilling his appetites. V'yesh hu tahor guf biyoter, lo yit'aveh afilu ledvarim me'autim she'aguf tzarich lehem. And there's those who are pure-bodied, tahor guf, meaning they abstain from the world and don't desire anything, even the smallest things that the physical body needs. And there's people who are greedy, for whom not any amount of money in the world is enough. Like it says in the verse, the one who loves money is never satisfied with money. And there's the person who's very tight, and it's enough for him, just a tiny amount that doesn't even suffice for his needs, and he doesn't go and try to find the needs of his body. In other words, he's lazy. And there's those who afflict themselves with hunger and tighten their fist. And he won't spend a penny on his own self except through great uh, anguish. וישו מאבד כל ממונו בידו לדעתו, and others will, or spendthrifts will spend all their money willingly. Valdrachim elo, and in this manner, she'ar kol hadeot, all the rest of the personality traits, kegon meholel ve'onen, for example, one who is excessively always laughing and joking, or the one who is always sad and depressed, v'chilai v'shu'ah, or the what's the word? The person who refuses to spend money, or the person who spends it all. V'achzlari v'rahman, or the cruel person, or the merciful person. V'rach leva ve'amitz lev, or somebody who's a coward versus someone who's excessively brave. V'chol kiyotze behen, or anything similar to this. In other words, all the different personality traits have poles. You can be at one side of at one pole or the other pole, or somewhere in between. As it mentions here, v'yesh ben kol de'a v'de'a harechoka mimena b'katzeh acher, and between each personality trait, each of the extremes, there are de'ot benoniot zo rechoka mizo. There are middle versions that are equidistant from the ends. V'chol deot, and all of these personality traits, yesh behen deot shehen la'adam mitchilat briyato, and of these personality traits, there are those that some people have from the time they're born, lefi teva gufo, according to the nature of his body. ויש מהם דעות שטבעו של אדם זה מכוון ועתיד לקבל אותם. And there's some for which the person's nature is such that he's has a tendency towards these traits and will eventually accept them. במהרה יותר משאר הדעות. He'll accept them more quickly than other traits. ויש מהן שאינן לאדם מתחילת בריאתו, and there's those that are not embedded in a person from the beginning, אלא למד אותן מאחרים, או שנפנה להן מעצמו. Rather, he learned them from other people, or he turned to them on his own, לפי מחשבה שעלתה בליבו, according to some thought that he had, או ששמע שזו הדעה טובה לו, ובה ראוי ללך, or he heard that this was a good trait to have and that he should go in this path. והנהיג עצמו בה עד שנקבעה, and he went in this, he trained himself in it until it was established in him. שני קצוות הרחוקות זו מזו שבכל דעה ודעה. The two extremes that are in every personality trait. אינן דרך טובה. They are not a good path that a person should go on. ואין ראוי לו לאדם ללכת בהן, and a person should not go on any of these extreme paths. ולא ללמדן לעצמו, nor should he train himself in them. ואם מצא טבעו נוטה לאחד מהן, and if he sees that his nature leans towards one of them, או מוכן לאחד מהן, or is ready to accept one of them, או שכבר למד אחד מהן, or that he already trained himself in, he already learned it, v'nahag ba, and behaves according to it, then יחזיר עצמו למוטב, וילך בדרך הטובים, והיא דרך הישרה. Then in that case, he should turn himself to the good side and go in the path of the good path, which is the straight path. And by straight, he means the middle path. הדרך הישרה, this straight path, היא מידה בינונית שבכל דעה ודעה. It is the middle road between each of the extreme personality traits. מכל דעות שיש לאדם, amongst all of the different traits that a person can have. והיא הדעה שהיא רחוקה משני הקצוות ריחוק שווה. And this is that trait which is in the middle between the extremes. ואינה קרובה לא לזו ולא לזו, and it's not closer to one or the other. ולפיכך, ציוו חכמים הראשונים שיהיה אדם שם דעותיו תמיד. Therefore, the early sages commanded that a person should estimate, rather consider his personality traits all the time, ומשער אותן, and figure out what they are, ומכוון אותן בדרך אמצעית, and steer himself into the middle path, כדי שיהיה שלם, so that he will be whole. Whole meaning, in this case, also perfect. כיצד? How so? לא יהיה בעל חמה נוח לכעוס. You should not be a person who's always angry and easy to become angered. ולא כמת שאינו מרגיש, nor should he be completely like a dead person and unfeeling. אלא בינוני, rather somewhere in the middle. לא יכעוס אלא על דבר גדול שראוי לכעוס עליו. He shouldn't get angry except over those things which are big issues which are worth getting angry about. כדי שלא יעשה כיוצא בו פעם אחרת. So that he shouldn't do the same, so that same thing that he's angry about should not occur again. וכן לא יתאווה אלא לדברים שהגוף צריך להם באי אפשר לחיות בזולתן. Likewise, he shouldn't he should only desire those things which the body requires and which it's impossible to live without them. כעניין שנאמר, as it says, צדיק אוכל לשובע נפשו. The righteous eats in order to satisfy his soul. וכן לא יהיה עמל בעסקו, אלא להשיג דבר שצריך לו לחי שעה. Likewise, he should not labor in his work so much more than he needs to acquire that which he needs in order to live. כעניין שנאמר, as the verse says, טוב מעט לצדיק. The righteous are satisfied with little. ולא יקבוץ ידו ביותר, nor should he be excessively holding on to his money. ולא יפזר כל מנו. Likewise, he shouldn't spend all of his money. אלא נותן צדקה כפי משאת ידו. Rather, he should give tzedakah, what we call charity in English, but that's not really the right translation. He should give tzedakah according to his ability. ומלווה כראוי ידו למי שצריך, and he should give out loans according to his ability and those who need. ולא יהיה מהולל ושוחק, nor should he be one of these people who's always laughing and carrying on. ולא עצב ואונן, nor should he be depressed and sad. אלא שמח כל ימיו בנחת. He should be instead happy all of his life in peace, בסבר פנים יפות, with a good countenance. וכן שאר דעותיו, and likewise with respect to the other personality traits. ודרך זו היא דרך החכמים. This path is the path of the sages. כל אדם שדעותיו כולן דעות בינוניות ממוצעות. Any person whose personality traits are all in the middle, like we explained, נקרא חכם, he's called a wise person. ומי שהוא מדקדק על עצמו ביותר, ויתרחק מדעה בינונית מעט, לצד זה או לצד זה, נקרא חסיד. And a person who is extremely careful with himself and distances himself from this middle just slightly to one end or the other is called a pious person. Now, by what it means by moving to one side or the other is to move to the side opposite the way that he would normally have gone. For example, if he's a person who normally would anger, he should move himself slightly more to the side of ignoring anger and not rising to the bait. Ketzad, what do we mean? מי שיתרחק מגובה הלב עד קצה האחרון, וישפל רוח ביותר. Someone who moves himself from haughtiness to the other side and is extremely humble. Nikra Hasid is called a pious one. Vizohi midat hasidut. But this is a level of piety. V'im nitochak ada emtza bilvad. And if he only moved himself to the very middle, between the two extremes, v'yeh anav, and he'll be simply humble. Nikra hacham, he's called wise. Vizohi midat ha-chochma, and this is the personality trait of wisdom. Val derech zo she'ar kol hadeot. And in this manner, likewise with respect to every other personality trait. החסידים הראשונים היו מטעין דעות שלהם מדרך האמצעית כנגד שתי הקצוות. And the early pious ones would turn themselves slightly from the middle road to one of the ends. יש דעה שמתאים אותה כנגד הקצה האחרון, ויש דעה שמתאים אותה כנגד הקצה הראשון. Some of them would move themselves towards one end, some of them would move towards the opposite end. וזה הוא לפנים משורת הדין. But this is beyond the call of duty, so to speak. This is beyond what the law requires. ומצווין אנו ללכת בדרכים אלו הבינוניים. We are commanded to go in these middle paths. והם הדרכים הטובים והישרים. These are the good and straight paths. שנאמר, as it says, והלכת בדרכיו, you shall go in his paths, God's paths, in other words. כך לימדו בפירוש מצווה זו. This is what they learned with respect to this commandment. מהו נקרא חנון, אף אתה היה חנון. Just as he's considered merciful, so should you be merciful. Mahu nikra, I'm sorry, not merciful. I can't remember the translation in English. Mahu nikra rahum, afata heya rahum. Just as he's merciful, you be merciful. Mahu nikra kadosh, afata heya kadosh. Just as he's holy, so should you be holy. Val derech zo karu nevi'im la'el b'chol otan kinuim. And in this manner, the prophets called God with all of these different adjectives. Er hapayim, barav hesed, tzaddik v'yashar, tamim, gibor, v'hazak, v'kyotze behen. They called him patient and full of pity and righteous and just and perfect and strong and so forth. להודיע שאלו דרכים טובים וישרים הם. That's to inform us that these are the good and straight paths in which we should go. וחייב אדם להנהיג עצמו בהן ולהידמות כפי כחו. That a person should train himself in these paths and to resemble God in these ways as much as is possible. וכיצד ירגיל אדם עצמו בדעות אלו עד שיקבעו בו? And how can a person train himself in these personality traits in order that they will become embedded in him? How? יעשה וישנה וישלש במעשים שעושים על פי הדעות האמצעיות. He should do and repeat a third time in the deeds which he does according to these personality traits of these median traits. ויחזור בהן תמיד, and he should repeat them all the time. עד שיהיו מעשיהן קלים עליו ולא יהיה בהן טורח. So that these deeds will become easy for him to do, and they won't be burdensome. ויקבעו הדעות בנפשו. And at that point, these traits will become embedded in his soul. In other words, by repeating an action, even if it is against your natural inclination, by repeating it often enough, it becomes natural to you and it replaces the trait that was your original. ולפי השמות האלו שנקרא בהן היוצר, and according to these names which the Creator is called, הן הדרך הבינונית שאנו חייבים ללכת בה. They are, and they are the middle road which we're supposed to walk upon. נקראת דרך זו, therefore this path is called דרך השם. It's called God's path. והיא שלימדה אברהם אבינו לבניו שנאמר. And this is what Avraham, our forefather, taught his children, as the verse says, Ki yida'ativ leman asher yitzaveh et banav et beito acharav v'shamru derech Hashem la'asot tzedakah u'mishpat. And God says of Abraham that I know of him that he will command his children and his house after him, and they will keep the path of God to do tzedakah and mishpat. And someone who goes in this path, he brings blessings and goodness to himself. Shene'emar, as the verse says, למען הביא השם על אברהם את אשר דיבר עליו, in order that God should bring upon Abraham that which he said to him. There's a lot to think about in this chapter. The next one continues with more of personality development, and we'll talk about that next week.